Welcome to Syd's Cambridge. I'm Lee Wood. I'm going to be your guide on this tour. Now, before we go any further, I want to make one thing perfectly clear. I'm not a professional presenter. I'm a genuine fan, just like you. And I grew up in Cambridge, and all the places that we're about to visit, I know really well. So let's start just behind me with what was the Victoria Ballroom and the Still and Sugarloaf. This is a location for the Victoria Ballroom and the Still and Sugarloaf pub. The Jokers Wild played here on a residency every Wednesday. Played for about 2 hours, so you can imagine that's how Dave Gilmour became quite an amazing guitarist.
Dave was very much a great front man, you know, full of personality, leaning forward into the audience. Girls loved him. He was a good guitarist. And they used to sort of say up there, the Victoria cinema across there. You went in the main entrance, I can remember, you went up, there was a cinema straight down, but and if you went to the dance used to be on the first floor. In fact, the dance room is now probably Marks and Spencer's ladies' underwear. On the left here was a bar that you went down the stairs called the Still and Sugarloaf, which was a regular haunt of the local boys. Here there was a shop called Gentry. I think it was the first mod shop that sold mod clothes. That was run by Mick Lambourne Brown and one of the Harris boys. Up there were dances most nights, particularly weekends. Jokers Wild were one of the resident groups. They played every 2 weeks. Mostly they did sort of covers, popular covers. I can remember sort of Dave Gilmour played lead, Clyde Wellham drums. I think Tony Sainty may have played bass to begin with, and then that was followed by Ricky Wills. Dave Altham played rhythm. David had been the head boy at Eton and come up to Cambridge University. He was one of the few sort of local university boys that played in local bands that played outside of the university complex or scene.
I don't have many memories of the other band now. I could have very well been there, but I was probably had used so many drugs at the time, I can't remember everything. But what I do remember is that Dave Gilmour playing with the Jokers Wild, who was a friend of mine then, David Ortham, and also Ricky Wills. Ricky Wills came from there, and he started playing many years later, probably about 10 years later. Let me think, this was in the 63, a bit more than that, about 15 years later, he started playing with Foreigner, and he went on tour for them and recorded for them for about 12 years, I think. And as I say, this was every in the middle of the week, and weekends we'd come here, and down in the Still and Sugarloaf we'd go drinking and socialising with all different characters.
Syd certainly, he would have visited up here in his jeans and Wellington boots, and this has been a regular haunt of his to sort of watch other musicians playing, and obviously he became friends with Dave Gilmour in those days. You know, Jonathan King, he was here at the university then. He used to hang about up here. And it was a regular music scene. I think Syd's sister remembers coming up here a lot on a Wednesday and enjoying herself and dancing around.
We're on the other side of the market square. This is the Guildhall. In 1953, when Syd was just 7 years old, along with his sister Rosemary, he won an award performing a piano duet with her of the Blue Danube. We're in Petty Curie now. This was the location for Ken Stevens' music shop, where the bands came to buy guitars, amplifiers, drums. It was a small shop about half the width of what you see behind me, and Syd and David Gilmour would come in here and spend hours playing with the instruments, but of course they couldn't afford to buy them at the time.
Ken Stevens, the first Ken Stevens I remember was here, guitar shop, drum shop. Everyone went into there. The early 60s was this expansion of rock and roll. Bit late for sort of Bill Haley and Elvis Presley, but I think the Rolling Stones had sort of had a very big influence. They'd appeared at the Rex, and everyone wanted to pick up a guitar, pick up a set of drums, play in a band, Some were good, not so good.
And if you didn't have money, he would give you some equipment as well. If you needed something, you know, if you were known like Dave or Dave Gilmore or Ricky or somebody like that, and other people from Soul Committee, another band, if you went in to him and you needed to borrow a bit of equipment, he would lend you it. Or if you needed to buy one, you didn't have any money, he'd give you it until you had the money to it.
Saturday morning, Ken Stevens was one of the first places you came to early in the morning to have a look round and look at the guitars and pretend you could play or dream you could be a star.
So where we are now in Petty Curie with the entrance to the Lion Yard, this was where the Red Lion Hotel was?
Yeah, if you went down Alexander Street, you had on your left here Henniker's Wine Bar. On the corner there was the YMCA.
Yeah.
The Riverside Jazz Band played there a lot. The bass player, which was the old double bass, his name was Syd Barrett as well, S-I-D Barrett, who Roger met and decided that Syd had been a good nickname. He'd adopted the name Syd, but he'd changed it to S-Y-D, I believe, and that was where he liked listening to jazz, modern and trad.
One thing I want to make clear at this point, because a lot of people say that he was the drummer in the jazz band, but he wasn't. He played double bass.
He played the double bass.
Yeah. This was Miller's Music Centre. They had the most astonishing range of records here. You could find everything, no matter how obscure. Syd and friends came down here to listen to obscure jazz records, even the latest pop records.
Yeah, this was sort of the second port of call. After Ken Stevens, this was part of the route.
Right.
Then you used to come here. Again, on the ground floor, you'd have musical instruments and drums. The guys who were into the music, actually wanted to become musicians, they'd go there. The rest of us would sort of disappear down the stairs, which you could see from here, and that was where the listening booths were. It had, I think it was the first place I remember, it had concave windows. Then you'd sort of go up and you'd sort of choose all the latest sounds, go into the booth, play them over and over again. The top 3 or 4, because you couldn't really afford them on the money you had, because you'd smoke in those days. So
I'm standing in the doorway of what today is Waterstone's bookshop. In the 60s, this was the Dorothy Ballroom. Everybody played here. I saw The Who, even Jimi Hendrix played here. And 3 weeks before the release of Arnold Layne, Pink Floyd played here. We're just inside what today is Waterstone's bookshop, and in our time was the Dorothy Ballroom. And we're in the Hobson Street end, which is, to us, was the main entrance, whereas most people seem to look at the other end, which was a supermarket. And so, and this was one of the main places in Cambridge, I think, for bands to play.
yeah, I mean everyone came here.
Yeah.
And this was the main door, and that was the staircase that went up. But a lot of local support here, Squad 5, Mark Arnold, Dawnbreakers, Joker's Wild, those without all would have played here. I'd guess nearly all the local bands.
Yeah. So when those without played here, was that with Syd?
I honestly can't remember, I think so. I know we actually played at RAF Wittering, right, but Syd didn't play then.
Right.
I mean, I know of instances Syd did play, but at that time, sort of, you didn't really take much notice.
No. To us, sometimes it's sort of yesterday, and at other times it's, when we look back, it's over 40 years. So, yeah.
Unfortunately, I don't have much memories here, probably because of substance. I can't remember this place at all. I know I've been here many times, people have told me, but I can't remember it.
So it must be from you, Charlie, they get the phrase, if you remember the 60s, you weren't really there.
Yeah, I know.
This was the Criterion pub, known to everyone as the Cry. Everybody met here: Syd, David Gale, Emo, Matthew Skerfield, David Gilmore. This was their favourite drinking place.
If you look on the pictures of the Criterion, this is exactly the same. These arched windows with the red brick.
Oh, wow.
If you go back, I'm sure it is, if you have a look.
Yeah.
I can remember sort of you went in the side. Everyone went to the Criterion. I think that was the most popular pub in Cambridge.
This is one of the first places I had a drink with Syd, because at the Millers, that's where I used to stand. I also used to go down and listen to records and see Syd down there. But I remember at Millers, just standing there, and Syd would go in or come out of Millers, and I would just be staring at him, because he was like this god to me, no? Which became my hero. And then later on, in the El Patio, where I used to drink coffee, I got to talk to him and made him laugh a couple of times. And then eventually one day I was down in the Criterion. I think I was about 17 or something, no? Underage to drink. I think he's 18, wasn't it? It still is, I guess, no? And had my first pint with him. Yeah, and that's one of my first memories of having a nice time with Syd, you know.
We're just round the corner from the Criterion pub, and opposite is the Dorothy Ballroom. This was where Miller's Music Centre moved to in 1966, and then they moved on in 1972. Just before they moved, they had a record sale, and some lucky person picked up a demo version of Arnold Lane. It cost them 40 pence. Today it's Sainsbury's, but in the 60s this was the El Patio coffee bar where everybody used to come. It was one of the first espresso coffee bars in Cambridge.
I remember this was the El Patio. This is the coffee bar that the first one that really opened. But there was there was a Joe Lyons, and there was Waffles.
That's right, there's a waffle cafe next.
But El Patio was big at bin, and it was a sort of leftover. It was a sort of transient style left over in the 50s, the kitsch area. But the El Patio, it was sort of like a loosely based on South America or a Mexican image. You had all the sort of sombreros and all this false plastic fruit, these limes and these lemons and bananas right hanging about. But it was the sort of a place that, you know, as a young person, if you had a girlfriend, instead of going to the pub at lunchtime after you'd done the circuit of Ken Stevens and Miller's, you brought your girlfriend here and sat and drank coffees and etc. etc. I mean, the terrible thing again is sort of, you know, when we were talking to the tour guides said, this is a first for us, standing with our backs to Sydney, Sussex, looking at a part of Sainsbury's and trying to look back to say, this is a coffee bar that Syd Barrett went into, and Syd Barrett sort of drank coffee in and frequented, met his friends and talked about music and brought his girlfriends. Normally we stand with our backs to this and are looking at Sydney Sussex College and talking about the history of that college. And
yeah, it was more like a beat cafe for the early beatniks. You know, the arty people came in, all like Syd and other people, poets. And this is where I first used to come and meet Syd. Or I'd come in here and then I had coffee and talk, a chat with Syd, and then maybe we'd go up and have a pint later or something like that. Yeah, basically it's where we all used to hang out in the beatnik days.
We're at the Friends Meeting House on the corner of Jesus Lane and Park Street. This is the place that most people think Syd gave his first ever live performance as part of Jeff Mott and the Mottos. But actually, this isn't the location, and later on I'll reveal what is the correct location. This is the famous round church in Bridge Street. Just round the corner you'll find a little door just below street level, 40 paces from the front of the round church, and this is where the Union Cellars is hidden away down a little staircase. If Syd's first live performance wasn't just round the corner at the Friends Meeting House, some people think it was down here in the Union Cellars. But actually Syd didn't play here until July 1964 as a member of the Hollow in Blues.
Those without played here. I mean, it was the Cellars just here through those sort of pavement level glass. So I mean, obviously over the years now, health and safety. I mean, if there was a fire in there, I think everyone would have been out of it. But there was a little bar in there, toilets were down there, and it was a door. You played here.
Yeah.
The door at the end of this piece here was where you brought your equipment in.
Yeah.
Jenny Spires says this is where she first met Syd.
Right.
Playing here for those without. Of course, in those days, Syd played. He did vocals, but he played bass guitar. He didn't really play lead.
glasses.
Okay.
Which is all still totally original as it was. Just the colours changed.
No, I remember because I played in a band and we played here once. I remember that.
Yeah. That's still the original stage.
It's still the original stage.
Yes. All we've done is put a new surface on it.
Wow.
We took the boarding off because it was all
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
put apply boarding on.
Wow.
So it's all totally original.
That's incredible.
It is, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, of course.
Doesn't matter
yeah,
where
it
you
is.
go.
That is amazing.
Yeah. And the original seats, the size as well.
Yeah, yeah. And I was remembering the like veneer and stuff underneath.
Great, isn't it?
That is amazing. I have the privilege of standing on the stage where bands played. This is the Footlights as it originally was in the 60s. The only thing that's different is the wall is now white, whereas before it was black. All the furniture you see around it, everything is the same as it was in the 60s. This is just amazing. Just soak up the atmosphere here, because this is where Syd played, this is where Joker's Wild played, and very few people get to see this.
David Gilmour's son was actually at the college here.
Oh, wow.
He came to the college here. And he lived with me. So, and of course his first wife, Ginger,
Yeah,
who's now the sculptor.
right.
She keeps inviting us. She has these showings all the time. She invites the wife and I, which is good.
Yeah,
In London. So yeah, we're still in
contact.
His dad, Dave Gilmour, doesn't speak to many people. He's not. He's sort of in the background of it.
Yeah, yeah.
Of course, him and Paul McCartney always had this little thing going, didn't they, about how much money have you spent, how much have you given to charity?
Oh, right, yeah, yeah, because
Yeah.
Dave's quite generous in that way.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah.
And so Paul McCartney and him had this little thing going, and still do.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Good fun. Yeah. But no, great times. Thoroughly enjoyed the 60s and 70s.
Yeah. We're in Trinity Street, one of the oldest places in Cambridge, and behind me what was the Turk's Head restaurant. And upstairs was the International Club, where Syd and David Gilmour would come because there were lots of attractive foreign students here.
I think this used to be called the Turk's Head, didn't
This
it?
is the
Restaurant.
Turk's Head.
Here it used to be the Turk's Head restaurant, and upstairs was a place called the International Club, and most of the foreign students at one point would gather here. And this is where I was probably about 17 when I first met my first French girlfriend, Michelle. Blonde beauty she was, and it's also where I first met Dave Gilmour. And also, well, Dave Ortham I already know, and he was a drummer of the rhythm guitarist with the Joker's Wild. And also Dave was also at that time playing with the Joker's Wild. They were together already. And every now and again, me and Dave would sit there and have a coffee and chat over whatever's happening around Cambridge at the time. And that was the beginning of my relationship with Dave Gilmour.
In the 60s, this was H.R. Aldis & Sons, which was a place everybody came to buy Levi jeans. They actually sold 17 different colours of Falmere's jeans, so all the fashionable people came here. This is the world-famous King's College. When Pink Floyd were playing at a May ball, Roger Waters got the inspiration for the lyric, "The lunatic is on the grass." And in the King's College cellar bar, Syd, with Twink and Jack Monk, played a short set on the same bill as Eddie Guitar Burns. The date was Thursday the 20th of January 1972. Syd's girlfriend from the 60s, Jenny Spires, had invited Syd to the concert. This is the Eagle pub in Bennett Street, probably the most famous pub in Cambridge. Everybody used to come here. When Jokers Wild played their concerts at the Victoria Ballroom, during their break, they would come round here with their friends for a quick drink. This is the Corn Exchange, just behind the Guildhall. There's a lot of history here. Syd and Rosemary came roller skating when they were young, and this is the spot where Syd made his last ever live performance as a member of Stars in February 1972.
This was where Syd played with the last-minute put-together boogie band, with Twink, Jack Monk, Fred Frith and Bruce Payne. The Pink Fairies and Hawkwind also played on the bill. This was January the 27th, 1972. On Thursday the 24th of February, now calling the band Stars, Syd played a disastrous set on the same bill as the MC5. The event was witnessed by Roy Hollingsworth of Melody Maker. 2 days later, on Saturday the 26th of February, the band played at the Corn Exchange again as support to the band Nectar. It was to be the last time Syd ever played live. The review for the concert on the 24th appeared in Melody Maker the following week, and after reading it, Syd appeared on Twink's doorstep and told him he was leaving the band. The date was the 2nd of March 1972. It's amazing to think that from the day Syd first performed as a member of Jeff Mott and the Mottos on March the 11th, 1962, to the day of his last performance at the Corn Exchange on the 26th of February 1972 is virtually 10 years to the day.
In the 60s, this entire area was flat. There was just one building on its own, isolated, the Masonic Hall. Syd played here as a member of the Hollowing Blues.
The Hollowing Blues was a short-lived band who played here on at least one occasion, although it's difficult for anyone to remember with any accuracy. However, many bands played here, including Jokers Wild, and it is perfectly possible Syd also played here as a member of Those Without.
This is the exact spot where in the 60s Ken Stevens' music shop moved to from Petty Curie. In January 1968, I was in here with a couple of friends. We were trying out guitars. In walked David Gilmour, walked to the back of the shop, picked up a Fender Stratocaster, went over to the counter and said, "I'd like to buy this." "See you, Dave," we said as he walked out the door. 3 days later, we bought Melody Maker. On the front cover, David Gilmour joins Pink Floyd.
Just round the corner from Ken Stevens, we're back at the front of the Guildhall. This is a very important spot. Right here is the place where the legendary Stars gave the open-air performance on the Market Square on the afternoon of Saturday the 12th of February 1972. The same day as their second concert at the Dandelion Cafe on East Road. Instead of a film, sometimes the Regal had major groups play live. On November the 6th, 1963, Syd had a ticket to see the Beatles. However, the same day he was due to attend his entrance interview at Camberwell School of Arts. He decided to miss the Beatles performance, perhaps an early indication of his love of art over music.
As you can imagine, everybody asked me about the latest fashion trends. In the early 60s, this was Style Best Boutique, and everybody came here to find out what was the latest thing to wear.
Walking into the city centre from his home, Syd would have passed this shop, and it's certainly a place that he bought a lot of his clothes.
This is number 88 Regent Street, and this is where Syd stood with the photograph with his car.
Today the front of number 1 Hills Road looks totally different, but if you go round the back via Harvey Road you can still see some of the original buildings of what was the Perse Junior School, which David Gilmour first attended.
We're in Union Road, just off Hills Road. In the early 1970s, where I am now, was a boutique and what we called head shop called What's in a Name. This was run by a guy called Steve Brink, and he was the promoter of many of the concerts at the Corn Exchange, including the Stars concerts. And at the back of his shop is where Stars actually rehearsed for those concerts. Twink actually lived here for a while, and that's why the band rehearsed here. Here we are at number 60 Glisson Road. This is the birthplace of Syd Barrett, Roger Barrett, before the family moved to 183 Hills Road when he was 4 years old.
Most people don't realise Syd used the railway station quite a lot. He went up to London to visit the art galleries, to go to places like Kew Botanical Gardens, and also to do some shopping. The railway station is less than half a mile from where Syd actually lived, so he probably used to bike down here. The road you can see now is Station Road, and about 400 metres down is the junction with Hills Road, where you'll find the Botanical Gardens. In the 60s this was Cheshunt College. Stephen Pyle lived here with his parents, and this is where those without actually rehearsed, and then they also gave a concert here in the college lodge. There are so many beautiful buildings here in Cambridge that we often take them for granted. This is one in particular, just one more obscure location in the early history of Syd Barrett, and almost forgotten in the mists of time. This is the Botanical Gardens, 40 acres of stunning trees, plants, shrubs and flowers. It was a favourite place of Syd's father, who had his own set of keys, and Syd also loved coming here. 1967 was the summer of love, with flower power, psychedelia and leading the way Pink Floyd. My girlfriend Mandy Harvey had the idea to give out flowers to strangers. The local newspaper brought us to the Botanical Gardens to take photos. However, the pictures never appeared in the newspaper. Lots of people have heard about the park bench dedicated to Syd, but few seem to know its location. Well, you can find it right next to the fountain in the middle of the Botanical Gardens. The county high school was located just 100 yards from where Syd lived at 183 Hills Road. So there were many occasions when he bunked off school to go home and concentrate on his painting and art, which he much preferred to his school lessons. This part of the college is a fairly recent extension. This part is the original and where Syd came to attend part-time art classes organised by his mother and Mary Waters. It's also the location for the second ever live performance by the Pink Floyd Sound at the college's summer dance. The group consisting of Syd, Rado, Bob Close, Nick Mason, Roger Waters and Richard Wright played here on Saturday the 22nd of May 1965. Also on the bill were Unit 4+2 and the Boston Crabs, who were the local band formed by Jeff Mott and the first Cambridge band to get a major recording contract in 1965. Homerton College, unlike the more well-known colleges, is not open to the public. So let's take this opportunity to have a look around the beautiful settings. This is the Great Hall and the largest place in the college, so the chances are the summer dance took place in here. This is the Perse, one of the most prestigious schools in Cambridge. This is where David Gilmour attended, and according to what he says in most of his interviews, a place he truly hated. That's a shame, because I have to say, of all the places we approached for help, they really went out of their way. Today it's a meeting room, but in the 60s this was the changing rooms. When David Gilmour attended the school, if ever he could not be found in his class, the teachers would always know to look in here, where they would find him practicing on his guitar. As one person told us, that was the only thing he ever wanted to do. Now we have a surprise for you. Take a good look at this hall. It's a very important location for fans of Syd. I can reveal that on Saturday the 19th of February 1972, Stars played here, along with another band called Suchacluff and a disco. According to a review in the school magazine, Stars were billed as the Boogie Band and certainly lived up to their name. They were top of the bill and went on last, and the review is really good, so Syd must have been on good form for this performance. What a shame Roy Hollingsworth didn't review this performance instead of the one at the Corn Exchange. If he had, it's possible Syd's music career could have been very different. Sadly, we'll never know. David Gale was a very close friend of Syd's, and on one occasion, when David's parents were abroad, a group of people, including Syd, took acid at this house. Syd fixated on 3 objects for over 4 hours, to the point where years later Storm Thorgerson, who had been present at the gathering, used the 3 objects as part of the cover for Syd's album. The objects were a matchbox, a plum and an orange. Turn left out of the driveway of 183 Hills Road, and a few paces down is Blincoe Grove. Then it's a 2-minute walk to the Morley Memorial Primary School, which was Syd's first school. Some days Syd would be happy to go to school, skipping along with his sister Rosemary, but other days it would take a lot more and he'd be taken by his father. One of the teachers was Mary Waters, mother of Roger. After passing his 11+ exam, Syd's education continued at the county high school on Hills Road. "42 Rock Road was the home of Roger Waters. His mother was an ex-Communist Party member and a strong supporter of the campaign for nuclear disarmament, and Roger was the chairman of the youth section of the movement. In March 1962, Roger designed the poster for a local CND rally event, where a local group made their debut. They were called Jeff Mott and the Mottos. It is rumoured Syd Barrett came up with the idea for Arnold Lane partly because someone stole some clothes from Roger Waters' mum's washing line. This is the garage at the rear of his home where Roger kept his motorbike. This is the house of Seamus O'Connell. Many people recall Seamus being closer to Roger Waters than Syd. In 1964 Mrs O'Connell sold the house and moved to Tottenham Street in London, a place Syd was later to lodge at when he started to attend Camberwell College of Art. Cherry Hinton Road is about 2 miles long, divided in the middle by a roundabout with Pern Road. Halfway down the first half is where Syd lived at 6 St Margaret's Square, and near his home is a small parade of shops. This includes a chemist's where Syd may have purchased medicine, and various takeaways, and the post office he used. This is the post office where the DVD you are now playing was posted from. It's been reported Syd liked a Guinness and a game of darts. This is the nearest pub to where he lived, although I have no evidence he ever went in there. Just a few hundred yards from Syd's house, on the junction with Pern Road, is this supermarket. At least one of Syd's old friends remembers seeing him in here, although he also used a larger supermarket we'll show you later. As I mentioned during the first tour, most people think Jeff Mott and the Mottos made their one and only public performance after a CND rally on Sunday the 11th of March 1962. However, the rally actually took place on Saturday the 10th, with a speakers meeting in the evening at the Friends Meeting House in Jesus Lane. Another reason for the confusion may be that in the early 1980s a second Friends Meeting House was built at 91 Hartington Grove, around the corner and next door to this hall. In the 60s this was called the Free Church and is located on the junction of Cherry Hinton Road and Hartington Grove. Now for the first time I can reveal the live performance of Syd playing with Jeff Mott and the Mottos was inside this church hall. Everyone in Cambridge knows the mill pond. In the summer, especially when the sun shines, this area is packed with thousands of people. There are two pubs here, the Anchor and the Mill. This was a favourite meeting spot for Syd and all his friends. They would drink in both pubs, have a picnic on the grass and generally fool around. The Mill pub had live music in the 60s, and it is said Syd and David Gilmour played here as a duo. This is the area where everyone would sit, have a drink and enjoy themselves. This is the old Addenbrooke's Hospital site on Trumpington Road, where Syd's father worked. Today it's a research centre with many famous names like Microsoft. And just across the road is the Fitzwilliam Museum, which was a favourite place of Syd's, and he would visit it on many occasions. This is David Gilmour's house at 109 Grantchester Meadows. The entrance porch has been added since the 1960s. This shows the diverse range of Syd's friends. This is the home of Matthew Scurfield, situated in one of the finest areas of Cambridge, and in 2008 has a value of over £2 million. Compare this with the next house on our tour. This is Darwin Drive. In the 60s it wasn't a very desirable area. These were council houses and a lot more run down than they are today. Ian Moore, or Emo as he was called, lived at number 23, which was one of the worst. So bad in fact the council pulled it down. This was the location for the Rex Cinema and Ballroom, a large building not in the heart of the city as you might expect, but tucked away down a residential back street. Yet the Rex was a very popular venue up until the site was developed in 1972. One of the most significant dates is the 30th of September 1963, when the Rolling Stones played here. Word had got round and the place was packed. The Stones performed on a tiny stage barely 2 feet off the ground, yet it is said this concert prompted more people to form their own band than any other performance. Every report in the past states Syd Barrett first saw the Rolling Stones at a concert in the tiny village of Whittlesea. However, despite a lot of research, I can find no trace of them playing there. They did, however, play a concert at the Corn Exchange in Wisbech, which is close to Whittlesea, on the 20th of July 1963. And this ties in with the facts Mick Jagger told Syd they had just recorded a song called Poison Ivy. The Stones had recorded the song just 4 days earlier and they expected it to be their next single. In the end they decided on the Lennon-McCartney song I Wanna Be Your Man, but demo copies of the single do exist. To add to the mystery, I remember Mick Jagger's brother Chris was at university in Cambridge around this time. The Rolling Stones were on tour, but they did have a free day, Friday the 19th of July, and could have played a low-key private concert at Whittlesea, and Syd might have found out from Chris Jagger. Unlikely, but anything is possible. Storm Thorgerson was the co-founder of Hypnosis and the designer of most of the record covers for Pink Floyd. David Gale remembers this as being an important place for Syd and friends. It's a small house but quite close to the city centre, and therefore handy for everyone after the pubs had shut at about 10:30, as they did in those days. Syd attended the Tech, as it was known, from 1962, after he left the county high school. Together with his school friend John Gordon, they were to study for a 2-year pre-diploma course in the Tech's School of Art. In 1963 they were joined by David Gilmour, who was there to study for his A-levels in modern languages. In 1964 Syd left to go to Camberwell, and John Gordon joined David Gilmour in the group Jokers Wild. Today the Tech has become Anglia Ruskin College. One of Syd's pet hates was the poor quality of some of the teachers, and judging by reports in recent times, the quality has remained about the same. Pink Floyd played here at the New Year's Eve party on the 31st of December 1966. Tickets were 7 shillings and 6 pence, about 37 new pence in today's money. According to the book The Pink Floyd Fan's Illustrated Guide to Cambridge, the Dandelion Cafe was located here, where Bathim House is today. However, you'd be looking in the wrong spot. It was actually located here, as the only photo I could find clearly shows. Hey, we all make mistakes, and it's still a fine book, well worth buying. Stars performed here on 2 occasions, Saturday the 5th and Saturday the 12th of February 1972. According to Twink, both these shows were really good. The 12th of February was also the day they played on Cambridge Market Square in front of the Guildhall. This is our local B&Q store, located on Newmarket Road, and where Syd's sister Rosemary says he used to buy all the wood for his home DIY projects. When the Dorothy Ballroom closed, we got a furniture store, before it became Waterstone's bookshop. When the Racehorse pub closed, we got a McDonald's. Great. The Racehorse was a lively place. In 1965, when I was 15, some older friends would take me there to see the bands play. I saw Jokers Wild play here, and my favourite band were called Something Else, named after the Eddie Cochran song. I know those without played here, and I could well have seen them, but I honestly don't remember. Do you want fries with that? This is the Sainsbury's supermarket on the junction of Pern Road and Coldham's Lane, and where Syd did his main food shopping. It's located less than a mile from his home. The Scouts Hut on Pern Road was the place David Gilmour rehearsed with bands like The Newcomers and Jokers Wild. Syd was in the Scouts and would have come here. And here's a previously unseen photo of Syd when he was in the Scouts. Syd loved coming here to see the beautiful display of dahlias. As Syd didn't have a car, he would have come here with his sister, Rosemary. Floyd is located about 4 miles from Cambridge on the road out towards Burwell. This is the Gardner Hall in the lovely village of Burwell. According to a book by Glenn Povey, this was almost certainly Syd's last performance with Those Without, before turning his full attention to Pink Floyd. This concert took place on the 7th of August 1965, and therefore this does make some sense. This is the Lion and Lamb pub on the High Street in the village of Milton, just a couple of miles outside Cambridge on the road towards Ely. In either 1963 or 64, Syd held an exhibition of his paintings in a room above the pub in conjunction with Anthony Stern. According to one source, he sold at least one painting, although this cannot be confirmed.
So here we are at number 6 St Margaret's Square. This is a place where Syd passed away on the 7th of July 2006. We've come to the end of our journey. Everything to do with Cambridge and with Syd Barrett. It's been an emotional journey, and all we can do is thank Syd for the memories and for the music, and just say, shine on you, crazy diamond.
Yeah, he was quite grumpy. Could be
Right.
quite grumpy.
Okay.
Could be quite difficult with the paint sometimes. But I didn't realise it was him for ages, and it was only after I saw a picture of him in the newspaper that I realised it was him. Yeah, and yeah, no, he was always a bit sort of suspicious, but I mean we didn't sort of let on that we knew who he was. But after that, I did sort of, you know, was a bit more. Because I remember a few times saying, no, that's not the right paint. That is the price, you know, and sort of realising afterwards, you know, felt a bit guilty. But no, he was very nice. Yes, and fascinating, absolutely fascinating. I've heard that his early work was quite good. I don't know about the later stuff.
That's what he was interested in. He wanted to be a painter, and then he got into music. He just happened to have a talent for that. And then I think when he came back to Cambridge, he just wanted to go back to painting and be who he was, but nobody would let him.
Yeah.
So he just bought paints?
Yeah, he just bought paint and brushes and bickered about the price a little bit sometimes. And fast drying oils, I think. I wonder whether that's the way he works. When's it the Griffin.
So he used to, what was it that he bought, which ones?
He used to buy these Griffin Alkids. I think because they're fast drying, so that might be the way he worked. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I'm sure it was those, and so maybe sometimes the Winton. But these have a sort of series number, so some of the prices are more expensive, some of the paints, some of the colours are more expensive than others. So he used to sometimes say, you know, I'm sure it's a series 1. No, it's not.
Right, okay.
It was definitely was.
So do you know how often he used to come in? Was he regular or?
He was definitely regular, yes. And I saw him. I've been here about 10 years now, and he was one of our regular customers. And you just recognised him as that. And then we came across an article once which identified him as Syd Barrett. I couldn't believe it. I was just like, what's he doing in that magazine article? And then after about a year, I think that's when he died. So we only knew right at the end who he was. But before that, he was just, you know, never rude or anything. Just came in, got on with what, you know, straight to the paint, came to the till, and then rushed out again. But yeah, so there we go. But when I knew who he was, I sort of go, no. But I didn't talk to him.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was it really. But he always looked exactly the same. He had exactly the same outfit: black shorts with a sort of baggy shirt and that sort of big coat, and he just sort of waltzed in, waltzed out.
All right, lovely.
That's it.
Observant.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, artist.
You're an artist, you say.
Yeah.
Been out to the garden?
Yes, garden.
Well, obviously it's executive not having it, and and put another viewing or two on Monday. Then we'll be raising whether they want to hold more viewings or whether they approach or whether they approach the people that have already offered for their best offer.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. All right. Okay. Very kind of you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye bye. If you've got any queries, certainly give us the waterfall.